Welcome to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, the podcast where we dive deep into the journey from vision to reality. I'm Kelly Jackson, your guide on this path of self-discovery, transformation, and intentional living. Here, we explore everything from mindset shifts and personal growth to spiritual alignment and entrepreneurship, sharing insights, stories, and actionable wisdom to help you live a life in harmony with your dreams. Every episode will dig into what it means to not only dream big, but to actually consciously create the life you envision. Let's turn your dreams into real life. Let's begin with a gentle truth. If you're in the thick of something that you can't quite explain, if the dreams that you once had feel heavy, and if the mirror doesn't reflect the you that you thought you knew, and if you've been asking, what is even real anymore? You may be in the dark night of the soul. And it is not a failure, and it's not a punishment, and it's not something to get freaked out about. It is actually an ancient, sacred unraveling. And it's often the threshold to your next evolution. Which is why we're going to dedicate this entire episode to the dark night of the soul. So, what is it? Well, the dark night of the soul isn't just this bad season, okay? It is a spiritual breaking. It is a stripping away of everything false so that the true self can rise. And it often arrives uninvited, and it wraps itself around your life like a fog. And you are enveloped, and you may feel untethered and confused or numb. But something deeper is quietly being born. And this isn't destruction for destruction's sake. It is divine reconfiguration. And it can look like depression, confusion, loss, identity crisis, or that moment when the life you built no longer fits who you are becoming. And you might find yourself grieving something that you can't even name. The job, the relationship, the image. It all starts to feel off. And like your clothes are 2 sizes too small. This is your soul whispering. We're not doing this version of reality anymore. And you got to listen. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. Yeah, you feel uncomfortable. If you're wearing clothes 2 sizes too small, that's not comfortable. So again, it's your soul whispering, we're not doing this version of reality anymore. These moments often come before huge transformation. And it's the spiritual cocoon before the wings. And just like the caterpillar must fully dissolve into goop inside the chrysalis before becoming a butterfly. I didn't used to know that, y'all, but I've learned that now. And I don't know if you knew that either, but it's not like a caterpillar goes inside of a cocoon and the caterpillar grows wings and then it becomes a butterfly. That's always in my mind, I think, how I thought it worked, but that's not how it works. The caterpillar creates this cocoon, so it's inside of this chrysalis, and it completely dissolves. It turns to goop, and a new thing is formed. That's the butterfly. And we too must surrender to the unknown. I remember this meme, I've seen it for years, and it says, just when the caterpillar thought its life was over, it became a butterfly. So, it's messy and it's often misunderstood, but it is where the most sacred growth occurs. You are not falling apart. You are composting your former self so that something more aligned can take root. And we're going to surrender to the unknown. You don't need to fix yourself. You are being reformed. And I know we're conditioned to hustle through pain or to patch it up. Put a Band-Aid on it, patch it up. But this season doesn't need your solutions. It needs your softness and it needs your surrender. What if you just let it shape you? What if you trusted that even this messy, gooey part that doesn't make sense and that you don't fully understand, what if this is also part of your alignment? This is not your ending. This is your becoming. And I know it may feel final, but it's not. Your current situation is not your final destination. You are standing at the threshold of a new level of consciousness and self-love. And if you keep breathing through it, you're going to emerge more whole than ever. And we want to feel whole and we want to feel complete. So, the dark night of the soul isn't a detour. It is the curriculum. And if you're in it, you're not broken. You are breaking through to the next level of your life, to the next chapter, to the next version. This is where illusions fall away so that your soul can lead. So keep walking, even if all you see is the next step. That is enough. I've shared this before and I'll share it again here, that if you are in the middle of the forest in the darkest hour of night and you happen to have your little flashlight with you, maybe even the one on your phone, and you turn it on and it can only see 5 feet in front of you. And if you're on a path and you can only see 5 feet in front of you, it doesn't matter how far you've got to go. You can just keep taking that next step. Keep taking that next step. Eventually, you're going to get out of the forest, okay? So, let's talk about why we resist the dark, but can't avoid it. Oh, and I'm going to say this too, guys. I said if you're in one, you're not broken, you're just breaking through. And guess what? There's not necessarily just one dark night of the soul in your life. It's not like, oh, I went through my one, I'm done. No more dark nights of the soul for me. What I have found is that I will kind of experience a dark night of the soul with every new breakthrough into a new theme of consciousness, into a next level of life. These dark nights of the soul are what really catapult me when I see them and appreciate them and honor them and recognize them and surrender to them for what they are. These are the moments that I do have the breakthroughs, which is why this is so important, I believe, for us to talk about, because when you're in it, and especially if it's not something that you have experienced before, it can feel scary and it can feel like all the things I had mentioned earlier, like I feel depressed or I feel confused or like this. I mean, I mentioned identity crisis, and I want to touch on that a little later. We'll come back to that, but it's a good perspective shift on identity crisis. So we are going to come back to that. So what happens is sometimes we resist the dark. But here's the thing, we can't avoid it. And we live in a world that does celebrate the light and rewards performances and avoids discomfort. And so when we find ourselves in the dark, we often feel like we've done something wrong. But avoiding the dark is like trying to skip a season. You might delay it, but eventually the soul calls us back into alignment. And so this little segment we're about to get into, I want to talk about the very human urge to resist and the deeper invitation to surrender. Now, we are taught to fear the void, but the void is where creation begins. The void is where the noise stops. And truth can finally be heard. It's uncomfortable because it strips away distraction. But it's also powerful because in the silence, we meet our deepest needs and truest desires. So we call it the void. However, the space is not empty. It's fertile. Do you understand? Most people try to bypass their breakdowns with positivity and productivity or performance. But the soul doesn't play by those rules. And look, I know at the very beginning of my journey, trying to figure all this out and not having learned or been exposed to all of the resources, coaches, mentors, and books and everything that I have at this point now. This is, 9 years later. So here's the thing, I remember that, and you will hear sometimes people will say toxic positivity, where it's just like all love and light, all love and light. And I will say something else. I just read something the other day that said, don't get it twisted. Healers aren't just love and light. They become master alchemists of healing by transcending through the depths of darkness. Now, I understand that now, but I do understand in the beginning when I didn't fully understand, it was like, oh, it's just all love and light, all love and light. And that's when people can look and say, this is toxic positivity. You're not honoring the darkness. And so that's why you do have to honor the darkness. And you can't out journal or outwork or out vibe a spiritual reckoning. you know what? You don't need to, because this is where the real work begins. Not in pretending it's fine, but in honoring that it's not. And shadow work is sacred work, friends. It really is. So remember that you are not broken because you're unraveling. You're honest. In fact, it is often the most self-aware and soul-aligned people who experience dark nights because they're not numb to misalignment. And you're seeing clearly now. And that clarity might hurt, but it's honest. And honesty is the doorway to healing. You know, real evolution happens in the pause, in the silence, and in the grief. And we evolve not by bypassing grief, but by holding space for it. So let yourself cry and let yourself feel the ache. And the wisdom that you are seeking is not in avoiding these emotions, guys. It's in allowing them to move through you. Emotions, motion, energy in motion. That is what an emotion is. It is energy in motion. So we want to allow the energy to, or the emotions to move through us. And when we stop resisting the dark, it stops controlling us. The moment you allow it, the fear begins to lose its grip. And you begin to soften and you begin to trust. And the dark may still feel big, but it no longer feels like the enemy. And that feels good when you know this is here to help me. Even if it's uncomfortable. I mean, it's probably going to be uncomfortable, but again, remember, the caterpillar into the chrysalis, it turns to goop before it's the unraveling and the unbecoming to become. There's I've had plenty of my own dark nights, and I'm going to share. I'll share some of these experiences with you, or at least one here, something that might come up, because I want you to understand that I feel the depth of these dark nights, and I feel the fear, and I feel the uncertainty, but I also feel the spark that came after. And I know one that shared before. I've not, I guess, gotten fully into it, but this isn't the first time I've mentioned it, and I guess it should not be surprising. So the night of the reception of my first solo art show for the Selves collection, which was February 24th of 24, so it's just at a year ago, and I planned this on the full moon, and it was a Mis Sombres. If you don't know, it means my shadows, and the collection of artwork is about consciousness and higher self and ego self and shadow work and light work. And it's this really, it's an interactive collection of guides, metaphysical guides, and Mis Sombres is the realm of darkness. And these are the shadow guides, and they, are there to support you on your own journey of shadow work and light work. So it's very much about the kinds of things that we're talking about now, right? Your consciousness, your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind, your conscious mind, your higher self, your lower self, all of these different themes. And it all comes together with a combination of art and writing and spirituality and just all of the stuff. Okay, so I have this, my first solo art show, the reception of mis sombres, which means my shadows, and I'm doing it on the full moon, which is about conclusions and endings of cycles and all of this stuff. And I don't know why I didn't see it coming, but can I tell you, on the heels, right as this art show ends, I experienced a huge dark night of the soul. I mean, it was like really intense. And the thing is I knew that's what was happening, because this wasn't the first time I had gone through it. And so I knew to surrender to it. And it was, and part of the part that I thought was so funny, and I kind of had to laugh at this point, was that of my own ego, like, did I really not believe that I would have a dark night of the soul after I conjure all this stuff up, after I create these circumstances and all these cooperative components that just leads up to it? And this is something that I had worked towards and been excited and moved towards, just as it was a milestone moment in my professional life and my personal life. It meant something. I had, been a professional artist starting back over a decade prior to that. So there were just so many personal and professional milestones. There was so much love and everything that went into this, and for lots of things, and also the timing and everything. And so part of what happened after this show and this dark night of the soul that came right thereafter it was that I was like, okay, I don't have to do this alone. And I reached out to, the healers that I have in my circle. And I have some amazing healers in my circle. Whether, this was Reiki, this was yoga, this was chiropractic care, this was people I could talk to. I mean, this was, sound therapy. Like, this was all of my different modalities, all of my different trusted healers, and the people that are in my circle and I opened up and I let them know what I was feeling, and that it was feeling heavy, and that this was the pivotal moment. I was able to recognize that, yep, I opened the door. I opened the door here. And a big thing that came with that too, and with me opening and clearing and allowing these adjustments to my physical body and to my energetic body, into my spiritual body, and just a physical, all of the things. And the breakthrough. So what ends up happening is that I sat with it. I didn't run from it. I didn't try to numb it. I didn't try to drown it. I didn't try to avoid it. I didn't try to ignore it. I didn't try to pretend like it wasn't there. I acknowledged it, that it was happening. And I reached out to the people I knew I could depend on for support while I was going through it, and that wouldn't judge me, that would hold space for me and sacred space. And it was beautiful. And on the other end of that, so through this process, it was this cocoon moment, right? Because I came out of that, and one thing I realized was that for 7.5 just about years, I had been on a celibacy journey.
and because that was the right path for me. And y'all know I've got a whole episode on the 7.5-year celibacy journey. If you want to find out why the heck I did that, how the heck I did that, and all of that stuff, it's like it's episode 6, I believe. So that was something I recognized. And that was like this beautiful moment that came with that, was that I let that go, that it had served its purpose, that I no longer felt like I needed to be on this specific journey, not because anything had happened that had changed anything other than this dark night of the soul and this awakening and this, all of this stuff. And it's like, yes. And so for that week or however many days that I was going through that period of like, what the heck is going on? What came after was a lightness, a freeness, empowerment, liberation. It just felt so much more aligned. But I had to be willing to, and the thing is I couldn't have gotten to the place I got to with that next level of alignment and of consciousness and of clarity. So much clarity. And like a weight had been lifted. It just felt so good, but it felt really uncomfortable for a little while, like really uncomfortable. And so this might happen to you too. And that's okay. Okay? This is, again, it's just a deeper invitation to surrender. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what can be born in the darkness. Because here's the truth. Every dark night has a dawn. And it doesn't always come quickly. And it rarely looks like what we expect. But if we allow the darkness to do its quiet work inside of us, we will rise with something that no mountaintop can give us, guys. Rooted wisdom, embodied strength, and unshakable clarity. And that's what I want to talk about right now. What we gain on the other side of the dark night. You know, in the darkness, I believe that I found my real voice, and not the one that was trained to please or to perform or to prove. I think that when everything else fell away, I realized how much of my identity was shaped by external validation. And I'm talking about some of my earlier dark nights of the soul. And I had to ask, who am I without the applause? And who am I without the recognition? And the answers that I found weren't loud, but they were real. And that was the beginning of my liberation. And that season made me a better person, a better mother, a better woman, a better daughter, a better friend, a better leader, a better coach, because I learned how to hold space for pain without rushing to fix it. And the depth that I can hold for others was born from the depth that I was willing to meet in myself. And because of what I've experienced on my own journey, you know, I no longer fear the messiness of someone else's journey. And I trust the process because I have walked through fire and I know what it refines. It has been messy for me, guys. It has been messy. I don't know if you've seen some of the pinned posts on my Instagram page, but I mean, guys, it was like, I was a mess. And that's okay. And it is also why I just, when I say, if I can do it, if I can do it, guys, anybody can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Okay? So I just want to make sure that you hear that. And when you're going through this dark night, also remember that your vision isn't gone. It's just being replanted deeper so it can grow stronger. And so you can think of it as like a spiritual pruning. And y'all know I owned a landscape company for many years. And, this is part of how you take care of plants. If you want a plant to grow and be nice and full, you've got to cut it, like trim it back. If you don't, the plants can get real leggy and real stemmy, and they're not like, but so kind of like your hair. If you want your hair to grow long and healthy, right? Or thick and healthy, you've got to keep the dead ends cut off. You've got to trim it. And with plants, you've got to prune. You've got to cut back. That's how, or deadhead, get all the little old, blooms off. And that's how you encourage new growth. And this is, I guess, what I'm saying. This is like a spiritual pruning. It might feel like loss. So you have these shrubs in your garden and they're kind of tall, but they're getting a little leggy and they don't look so great. They're kind of got some spots that are patchy. And someone suggests, hey, we could prune them if we cut them down about a foot and a half. They'll really flush out. The bottoms will fill out and they'll fill in together and they'll make a dense shrubbery wall here. And you might be like, oh, I don't know, but I don't want to cut them down that much. And you're holding on to something and they don't even look great, but they're tall. And you're just like, oh, I don't want to cut them down because they're tall. And if you cut a foot and a half off, man, you're just taking so much off. And so you're like just holding on to something that doesn't even look that great because you're afraid of losing that height. But what you don't realize is by allowing them to be pruned, you are going to encourage new growth in every direction. And now they're not just going to be just scraggly little things growing up and creating more gaps and spaces and holes and not touching the plant next to it and all this other stuff. Nope. When you just say, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to allow them to be pruned. I'm going to cut them back. And that initial day when you walk outside and they look a foot and a half shorter than they did the day before, and that might hurt you a little because you feel like you lost something. But what you have to hear, friends, is that no, you didn't. It's what you surrendering to this process. It's what you are giving yourself in the future. You have created the conditions for more growth to happen and growth in all directions. And it's just going to be good. So your dream needed deeper roots to hold all that's coming. And this is just the quiet before the bloom. I guess that's what I'm saying. My coaching, when I coach, when I work with people, I love to help them navigate this exact space, guys. Not bypassing the dark, but finding power through it. And I don't offer quick fixes, so to speak. I offer sacred space to be real, to unravel, and to rebuild. And you don't have to do this alone. And this is what I live and what I've walked through and what I guide others through with deep reverence. You don't need to be, quote, okay to be powerful. You just need to stay in the same room with yourself. Perfection isn't required here. Presence is. And your wholeness doesn't depend on you having it all figured out. It depends on your willingness to keep showing up for yourself, even in the dark. And there is a version of you on the other side of this that is so rooted and so true and so clear. And that version of you is worth waiting for and worth honoring and absolutely worth the messy middle. And that might be where you're at right now, is the messy middle. And that's okay. Been there, guys. So stay in the process. It is shaping something sacred. Your dark night is not a dead end. It's a holy tunnel. And as you walk it, even when the light is nowhere in sight, and sometimes that's what it feels like, guys, know this: you are not lost. You are being remade, you are being reformed, and everything you need is already within you. Quiet the mind, the soul will speak. Don't be afraid of the dark. It's truly there to help you. Remember that void? It's not empty, it's fertile. And when you don't try to numb yourself, so if you're experiencing one of these dark nights, one of the tendencies may be to want to not feel what you're feeling. So you want to drink it away, smoke it away, have sex it away. I won't say the F word. Or distract it away, right? Numb yourself to it. All these things that we can do to not be with it. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to be with it, and not to try to escape from it, and not to try to avoid it, and not to try to numb it, to actually be with it, and to hear and receive the message that it's here to give you, and learn the lesson that's here to teach you. And know that you're not going to be in that dark night forever. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but something really spectacular is happening here, guys. And, you are having your breakthrough. And I want to remind you of that. If you are in one right now, here's what I want you to know. If you're walking through your own dark night of the soul right now, today, I want to speak directly to you, because when you're in it, you don't need a checklist or a fix. You need love, and you need presence, and you need to remember that you're not alone. This is not your forever. And I know it might feel like you'll never laugh the same again, or never feel like yourself again, or never trust the light to return. But this is a chapter, not the whole story. So hold on, because there is a version of you that already knows how to emerge, and they are guiding you home. Before I go any further on this, let's just real quickly, I know we're towards the end here and I'm just doing this, but let me give you a little bit of a description of what I believe the dark night of the soul to be. A profound spiritual, quote, crisis or transformation, and a period of intense introspection, self-doubt, and existential questioning, often triggered by significant life events, loss, or spiritual awakening. And I would say this intense self-reflection would be like a deep examination of your beliefs and values and your purpose. And the existential questioning would just be doubts about the meaning or purpose of life. And maybe some emotional turmoil there, like feelings of despair or anxiety or disconnection. And then you might even be having some like spiritual disillusionment, questioning your faith or your spirituality or the connection to a higher power. Not even questioning, does it exist, but questioning to what extent? How does it work? How is it connected? Just questioning things that you've maybe for a while just been going about your life. Haven't really put much thought or question to it. And now you are. And the purpose of this would be, transformation, guys. The dark night of the soul can lead to powerful personal growth and spiritual awakening and transformation. And it can prompt you to reevaluate your priorities and your values and your whole life path, to be honest. And, it's a period of renewal. Like, ultimately, this can lead you to a renewed sense of purpose, a renewed sense of meaning, a renewed connection to yourself and to the world. And, as far as navigating the dark night of the soul, again, this is kind of what we're talking about now. It's just self-compassion, practicing kindness and understanding and patience with yourself. And seek support, just like I was talking about. Reach out to trusted friends or family or spiritual guides. And mindfulness, engage in mindfulness practices like meditation and journaling. And allow yourself to feel. And permit yourself to experience and process your emotions, emotion, energy, and motion. And yes, the dark night of the soul can be challenging. AF. Ultimately, though, it's transformative. AF. So you're not weak for struggling. You are strong for staying present. Remember what I said earlier about numbing, avoiding, doing all the things? Look, guys, going back to that's the celibacy journey. Again, one of the reasons I had to do this, and that's why I know the dark night of the soul came with the end of that journey, because of what I needed, what that journey meant for me personally. I'm not saying that journey's for everybody, but for me, that journey was a calling. And I recognized that I was not dealing with my life. I was using sex to numb, distract, avoid, literally all the things. It was like pretty much addicted to sex as a means of not facing the reality of my life. My life was not where I wanted it to be. It was not anything but I could stroke the ego. I could numb the pain. I could distract. I could do whatever I wanted to do. Yeah, I could use sex for those things. That was one of the main reasons that I said, I've got to choose a different path for myself. And, numbness may be tempting, and distraction might feel easier. But every time you take a breath and you stay with what is real, even if it hurts, you reclaim a piece of yourself. And that is power, and that is resilience, and that is becoming. And again, I know this episode's not about that, but because, or about specifically that journey, but how this all relates is because that is what I was doing. And I will tell you this, the way that I used men as a distraction and used all of that to numb, when 100% when I quit doing that and I gave myself the space to not only reclaim a piece of myself, reclaim my whole self. Because boy, was I giving it away. Not that I would have wanted anybody to tell me that at that point, or if I would have listened, because my ego would have been too big or too in the way, and I wouldn't have wanted to hear it, because that was my coping mechanism. And so if someone else had values different than mine, and they valued themselves in a way where they weren't giving themselves away so readily and easily, and for the reason of just not wanting to deal with your own life, and it was just like, well, this is fun. This strokes the ego. This makes me feel good about this. Temporarily makes me feel good. And when you love yourself enough to just, and y'all guys, I'm using sex in this example. It could be alcohol. It can be drugs. It can be porn. It can be gambling. It can be anything that we use to video games, anything to an extreme, right? That we use to numb, to distract, whatever. And so you're not weak for struggling, but you're strong for staying present. So again, it might be tempting to numb or to distract. It might be easier. What you're really being called to do, with that addiction, with that whatever it is, what you're really being called to do is to stay with what's real, even if it hurts, and to reclaim a piece of yourself, all of yourself, whatever needs to be reclaimed. And you don't need to figure it all out right now. You only need to take the next breath. And the next right step of integrity. The mind will beg for a 10-step plan or a shortcut to clarity. And then there's your soul. And your soul just wants you to slow down. Healing isn't linear and it doesn't rush. Have y'all ever seen that little saying? The soul is not in a rush. Because it's not. Let this season shape you in real time. Trust that clarity comes in whispers, not in panic. So we want to calm the mind, and we want to allow ourselves to, the best we can, surrender to this season, this dark night of the soul. And know and remember, it's not going to last forever, okay? But it is an important part of our journey. So let yourself be held by your own grace, by safe people. I mentioned I have a team, right? A team, people I can count on, safe people. And by the knowing that this too is sacred. This dark night is sacred. You weren't meant to do this alone, and there is power in asking for help, and there is wisdom in being witnessed. If your heart is breaking, let someone hold a piece of it while you rest. And when you're ready and the time is right, I'm here to walk with you guys. You know, this work I do, this coaching, this guiding, this holding space, it's not about surface level success. It is about walking through the fire and remembering who you are. And if this episode is stirring something inside of you, know that your healing journey is welcome here. I just remembered something I said at the beginning that I wanted to come back to. And this is something that I posted on this on Instagram, I guess, maybe a couple weeks ago, but I want to revisit it because I liked it. And it was something someone else said. Her handle was Stars, Moon, and Sun. But it says, I don't believe in midlife crisis. I believe people that haven't been true to themselves start to wake up midlife and decide to start living the life that they truly want to live. What some call a crisis is really an awakening. I love that. And I agree with it as well. And I said that I would come back to this earlier. I said the word, quote, crisis before, like you might be feeling like you're having an identity crisis. And that's why I wanted you to hear this. Because I agree with stars, moon, and sun that it's not a crisis. It's an awakening. And this dark night of the soul, this is part of your awakening. You are the caterpillar inside the chrysalis, and you have dissolved into goop. And now it's time to, once you have surrendered to this part of the process as a necessary part of the process, what is on the other side? Because again, you are going to get to the other side of this. There is a version of you, those dreams, those big dreams, those visions all that stuff. Guess what? It wouldn't have come to you if there's not a version of you in some version of reality that's already doing it. And so you're going to make it. Again, you're not behind. You're not broken. You are becoming. And the light will return, not because you force it, but because you allow it. And when it does, it is going to touch a version of you that is wiser, that is softer, that is stronger, and ready. You are not alone on this path. I see you, and I honor your becoming. Until next week, guys, I love you. Thank you for tuning in to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It. I hope today's episode sparked something powerful within you. Remember, every step you take towards your vision counts, no matter how small. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a second to hit that subscribe button or leave a review. That would be amazing. Or share the podcast with someone who's ready to bring their dreams into reality too. And if you're looking to dive deeper, connect with me on social media at Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, or at BE_what you want. Or visit dreameditthenreallifedit.us for more resources on aligning your life, business, and dreams. Until next time, keep dreaming and keep manifesting your dreams into real life. Love you, friends.